Welcome in to the KSL Sports Front Page, our second show today, a special edition coming to you live during the 2021 NFL Draft. I'm your host, Kyle Ireland, host of the Yards After College podcast, powered by KSLSports.com, and alongside me right now is our BYU insider, Mitch Harper. Mitch, you don't look like you're at the office. Can you tell us where you're at and what you're doing right now?
Yeah, I'm here in Provo. One of the local artists, Alj Fumayano, is currently painting in the mural of Zach Wilson off Center Street with a New York Jets jersey. So I'm here in Provo on location. It's pretty cool behind me to see that taking place. It's going to be a fun thing to witness, and see it being done from a local artist is awesome to see. But yeah, excited to talk with you about Zach Wilson, Penei, Sewell. It's going to be a lot of fun here, Kyle.
Yeah, we're going to have a few people join the show over the next 20, 30 minutes. Coming up, just wanted to kind of break down live reaction of the NFL draft. And like you mentioned there, Mitch, Zach Wilson goes number 2 overall to the New York Jets. Not a huge surprise, something that we kind of have expected here since BYU's Pro Day about a month ago now. But now that it's official, you put up a piece on KSLSports.com, instant draft reaction to Zach Wilson. How do you think he fits with the Jets? What do you make of the pick?
I think it's a great fit, honestly. I think it's, San Francisco was considered the team that was the perfect fit, I think, for Zach Wilson. Even he said that early in this process. But when you think about it and take a step back, the Jets look and feel like a team that's a good spot for Zach Wilson because there's so much newness involved. You're talking about Joe Douglas, general manager. He's new. He's going to have time. Robert Saleh, head coach. Matt LaFleur, the offensive coordinator. It feels like they're all starting from the ground up, which should, in and of itself, give Zach Wilson, 2 or 3 years at least to be able to navigate the difficult waters of the National Football League. And I think also it helps, too, that, Zach Wilson's the number 2 pick. So the money trails behind him in the NFL. And that's going to give him the luxury, if he continues to progress and show progress and develop, he's going to get enough time, I would think, to be able to continue to grow and blossom. So I think it's an exciting situation. I think a lot of people are maybe just concerned over the history of the New York Jets. I mean, you got to go back to Joe Namath to see the last time the Jets really had a franchise quarterback, one of the best QBs in the league. It's been a long time, but Zach Wilson's got that chance now to revitalize a franchise in the nation's biggest media market. It's quite an opportunity for Zach.
Yeah, and I think that one of the cool things about Zach is he's under this new regime. So you've got Joe Douglas, pretty new GM, but I really think that the culture that Robert Saleh, and his new offensive staff that he's bringing in. I mean, he's a defensive guy, but he's bringing in that Kyle Shanahan type offense. So you're getting a lot of similar style that he would have had in San Francisco. But I think that this new culture change is really going to be impactful for Zach to have success in New York, because you've seen how, really back to Mark Sanchez, that was the last time they had a glimmer of success when they made those AFC championship games. But you have, Sam Darnold didn't have the infrastructure around him, where you have so many draft picks if you're the New York Jets over the next 2 seasons that if you don't hit on a number of them, I mean, you're going to be in the same position as before. So I really think that it comes down to the culture and the guys that are around him making decisions, and around him, Zach Wilson, that is. But you've got Robert Saleh, Joe Douglas. Those are the two that really are ultimately responsible for Zach Wilson's success, in my opinion, because Zach's going to be the kind of guy that puts in the hard work. He's going to be the guy that takes it seriously. And he's not going to be, a lot of players, when they go to big market teams, whether it be the NFL, NBA, whatnot, you get the bright lights, all that money and things like that. I don't think that Zach's going to be distracted by that. What do you think?
It's a good question. I mean, I wouldn't think so. I mean, he's a pretty humble guy. I mean, even when he became the starting quarterback at BYU, the youngest starting quarterback ever in program history back in 2018. He was pretty humble about it. I mean, he is confident. Don't excuse the humble nature of him as lack of confidence, because he's got that swagger, that confidence that you want from a quarterback. A little bit of, you could say, arrogance, but I think that it's a positive thing. He steers it in a positive direction. I think it's also going to help too. When he was at BYU as a freshman, he was embraced early on by seniors as a true freshman. And I bring that up because, at BYU, you sometimes get 24, 25-year-olds on the high end. It's not all the time like some in the national media would like to think. But those guys embraced Zach early on, and they saw the potential right away. And I think that experience is going to serve him well going into an NFL locker room, because I think you look at him, you think he's just a kid. He's the baby face assassin, if you will. But he's got experience leading grown men already. And I think going into the NFL locker room, it's not going to be a complete culture shock. I mean, look past the baby face. This guy is going to do everything in his ability to work hard and put out the best product that he possibly can. You just hope that the Jets get the pieces around him to have success. He's going to have to improve in tight spaces and tight pockets, because at BYU, he had a fantastic offensive line around him, one of the best in the country. And he's got to improve in that regard, because the Jets, they don't have a great offensive line, and they got to hope they hit on some of these draft picks. Maybe a Brady Christensen in day 2, that could be a potential target in round 2 or 3. So I like the fit. I think there's just so much optimism right now about this opportunity. You're talking about the highest draft pick in BYU football history tonight. That's a special deal. I mean, we're seeing murals behind me. This is the type of big deal that it is for Zach Wilson, BYU football, for the state of Utah too, and also for the New York Jets.
Yeah, and someone who understands a little bit what it's like to be Zach Wilson, someone who's been in the same shoes as him, and that is former BYU and former NFL quarterback Jake Heaps. Jake, thanks for joining the show tonight and joining us for this live reaction show to the NFL Draft. What do you make of Zach Wilson going to the New York Jets? I mean, you spent time with the New York Jets. Who better to talk to than you tonight, someone who's really walked in Zach Wilson's shoes before he did?
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on, and it's exciting to see this for Zach Wilson. The process, everything that you go through as an athlete, everything that you sacrifice, that you work through, and everything that Zach did through this process. This was not an easy road for him. This was not a journey that started as a 5-star quarterback and just had an easy ride and great success all 4 years. He had to overcome, battle injuries, have a legitimate quarterback battle, because you just didn't know if he could sustain his durability on the field. And Kalani Sitake and the staff had to really look at other options and really challenge Zach Wilson. And he responded tremendously. And I think that all of those things allow him to be successful at the next level. That's not even talking about his physical traits and what he does on the field. So I'm extremely happy for him. I'm extremely happy for his family and everybody that's involved in his journey and in his process, because guess what, guys? You enjoy tonight. You enjoy all the hard work and the dreams and everything of making this a reality. But the real work begins tomorrow as he sets in the reality that he is going to be the starting quarterback for the New York Jets. And you're right, I was there my rookie year. It's a tough town to play in. It's a tough city to be in. They expect a lot out of you. It is a media circus 24/7, and it's going to challenge Zach. There are going to be days where he's the man, and there's going to be days where they're looking for the next thing. And I think it's going to be a matter of how he handles himself. And I think that through his situation at BYU and what he went through, I think it's going to be a perfect, crash course into how he needs to handle himself here as a New York Jet.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that team as far as it comes to culture, Jake, because, it's obviously been a few years since you were there, but you understand NFL locker rooms, you work with NFL athletes, and you're very familiar with that. How important is culture and the fact that the New York Jets have brought in a new regime here in the last few years? They're really starting from a pretty clean slate, I would say, bringing in a guy in like Robert Saleh, Joe Douglas, new GM there. And really, a lot of people have talked about, like Mitch mentioned in the show earlier, that Kyle Shanahan offense that kind of is tailored to Zach's talents. They're bringing that in with LaFleur. What do you think of just how important is it for a young quarterback to have that solid foundation, that good culture to build in?
Kyle, I could talk about this for an hour. But I think that, you guys asked the right questions here, because, during my time in New York, and that's really what it had been for a number of years with, Rex Ryan, you go to Todd Bowles, you go to Adam Gase. Every culture is different in the NFL. It truly is. And there's some cultures that are great, that establish team, that establish a brotherhood. That's extremely tough to do. But the New York Jets certainly was not that type of team. What they were is, and what they've been for a long time, is a team that shows up every single day as individuals that's there to collect a check and to do their job. This is my profession, and I'm here to individually try to maximize what I can instead of really truly focusing and being about the team. And so what Zach is stepping into is he's not having to worry about the aftermath of Adam Gase. He's walking into a very good situation in regards to the culture that will be set by Robert Saleh and the rest of the staff. So from that standpoint, I'm very excited for Zach. I think he's going to be in a tremendous situation. And guys, I'm telling you right now, Mike LaFleur was the #1 offensive coordinator out there in terms of the new young guy. Just being in this process and knowing from experience and having the Seattle Seahawks go through a process of looking for that next offensive coordinator this offseason, doing my research and doing my digging, there was nothing but rave reviews about Mike LaFleur. So I'm really excited about that for Zach Wilson. I've said before that my dream scenario, not necessarily for me as a Seahawks fan and a media member covering the team and obviously, training Russell Wilson and all that, but in terms of just the perfect landing spot for Zach Wilson, I would have picked the 49ers because of Kyle Shanahan and that scheme. Well, you go to, the next thing down, and we'll see if Mike LaFleur really has the chops, but he will be implementing that scheme. It'll be his baby. Robert Saleh is not going to touch it. The only thing that Robert Saleh is going to do is bring great energy, set a great culture that was familiar to what I know in Seattle that is very together. And it's going to be up to Zach Wilson to, from day one, to prove to these guys, like he did at BYU, that he's all about ball, that he loves the game, that he's willing to work, and that he's tough. Those guys in the league, it's about toughness. It's about mental toughness, physical toughness. Are you willing to play through injuries? Those types of things. And I think Zach's going to excel in that.
Yeah, another thing I wanted to ask you, and we're joined by Jake Heaps, former NFL and BYU quarterback. You can follow him on Twitter at JTHeaps9. You can also listen to him on 710 ESPN Seattle from 11 to 2, and I'm assuming that's Pacific time, Jake. So
yes, Pacific time, yes.
Fans here in Utah, you can catch that from noon to 3 on ESPN 710 Seattle. But, Jake, I wanted to talk to you about, you've played football all over this country. You've played in, Seattle, where you're from, and you've played in Utah. You've played in Miami, Kansas, New York. I mean, you can go all over the country here. How different is New York and just like that market, that environment that he's in? Because he's, he's a Draper kid. He played in Provo. He's a Utah kid, and so he's going to be really, bright lights, big city all of a sudden.
It'll be a big wake-up call. The biggest thing that I can tell Zach, and the biggest piece of advice that I can give to him, his family, everybody in his circle, is to ignore the noise. It's one thing to be in Utah and to be on social media and be active and, this, that, and the other. It's a whole different ball game in New York. And I think that Zach will do very well. I think New York City will like him. I think they'll like his swagger. It'll remind people a lot of Joe Namath, and the way that he approached the game from that standpoint. Maybe not all the extracurricular activities that Joe Namath was doing, but, just the cool swagger about him. I think Zach brings a lot of those traits, but I think the one thing for him is he's just got to focus on ball. Don't focus on trying to please everybody out there in New York. You will not have that happen. From my experience, guys, training camp, there were half the fans that were there to root the team and so excited to see the team. There was half the fans that were there to heckle and boo the players who they had picked that day that they wanted to give a hard time. So Zach's going to see both ends of the spectrum, even within their own fan base during training camp, during their practices. So it's a totally different ball game, guys, and I'm really excited for him. And if he can step up and if he can show off the talent and the traits that he possesses, the Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes-like ability to make these freakish throws and to be successful at the NFL level, processing and taking in the playbook and throwing on time and in rhythm and making those big plays off second reaction, I'm telling you guys, he's going to be a star in this league. So there's a great opportunity in front of him. I'm going to be very curious and obviously rooting the best for him, but I'm going to be very curious how Joe Douglas and that staff puts everything around him, because I think Zach's got the highest ceiling out of any of the quarterbacks in this draft. Yes, that's including Trevor Lawrence. but it's going to be a matter of, can this organization surround him with the right ecosystem? And that's going to be the biggest question.
And Jake, it's interesting when you look at Zach Wilson, because there's not many flaws in his game, but it feels like his best football is still ahead of him. He's acknowledged, though, he's got to improve in those small, tight pockets and just stay in there, still make that pass and not run. He's a guy that is a dual threat quarterback. He'll run if needed, but he understands that he doesn't want to take those hits. So what do you feel like he can do to improve in staying in the pocket when it collapses and be able to make those throws? Because it feels like ultimately those are still the quarterbacks that win when you look at Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes. What can Zach Wilson do in that regard?
Yeah, it's something that I've dealt with, for 4 off seasons now with Russell Wilson. That has always been the goal and the strategy. And that is, look, how can we operate our best within the pocket, but not eliminate or kill that special instinct that he possesses, that Zach Wilson possesses in terms of their creativity and their ability to make plays outside the pocket. The biggest thing that he has to be able to do is he has to own the system. And so confidence comes and breeds from owning the system and knowing what you're doing. And so it's going to take a great amount of studying. He has all the tools. He has all the physical skill sets. And I think he has the appropriate reactions. It's always something that young quarterbacks can always improve upon, Mitch, in terms of not escaping too early or too quickly. But I don't see that as a major issue. What I see the issue being is taking that big, long play call that he will get, being able to process it, call it out in the huddle, make guys believe and feel that play is going to be the best play that they've ever had, and then being able to go out and execute what he's seeing defensively and transition that from progression 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. And I think that is the next step for Zach. And if he can own that process here in his rookie season, I'm going to be extremely excited to see what ends up happening, because I think it'll be great. But that's going to be the biggest thing that's in front of him. And Mitch, that will allow him to not bail out on opportunities. Young quarterbacks, when they bail that much, it's because they don't know the system very well. It's because they don't know the answers. So what do they fall back on? The traits that always get them out of bad situations. So that's something to look on. How often is he doing that his rookie year? And that to me will be a tremendous indicator of how well does he know the system and how much command does he have it early on in his career.
He's the one and only Jake Heaps. You can follow him on Twitter at JTHeaps9. You can also listen to him on 710 ESPN Seattle and Mountain Time. If you're BYU fans in Utah listening to him, you can catch him noon to 3 p.m. on 710 ESPN Seattle. Thanks, Jake. I appreciate you joining the show today.
Yeah,
thanks,
absolutely.
Jake.
Kyle, Mitch, thanks, guys. Have a great rest of the draft, and we'll see. This is going to be a pretty fun draft, see how it unfolds. So thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jake. That's the one and only Jake Heaps, former BYU quarterback, and also had some time in the NFL. Pretty cool to have him on and get some perspective from him, Mitch. I think that he brought up some really interesting points because he understands what it's like to have that limelight on him, as far as a BYU quarterback is concerned. But he also saw what it was like for those starters in New York to have that, bigger, brighter light on them while they were in the city, the country's biggest market. And that's what Zach's going into. He's going into a terrible team from 2020 last season, where they're the number 2 pick in the draft. And all of a sudden he's expected to carry a franchise. So I thought he brought up some interesting points. What did you like about what Jake said?
I mean, one, Jake Heaps is his wealth of quarterback knowledge, so it's a pleasure to have him on and just break down the position. I think he gave great insight, though, into how Zach Wilson can progress in terms of staying in those tight pockets when it collapses, because I think that is going to be a big thing. Because we talk about so much the dual threat quarterbacks in the NFL, and still at the end of the day, Tom Brady's the one winning this league, and the guy, he can't run. I mean, you got to stop back and be able to pass, and I think Zach, he had a shift from his freshman to sophomore year where he realized, I can't take these hits. I'm not going to survive if I'm just taking the hits left and right. And that's something that I thought was really impressed with his game. Unfortunately, he had the shoulder and then he had the hand injury, but he understood he just can't take those shots. And in 2020, where BYU goes 11-1, he wasn't taking those hits. He'd get out of bounds, he'd slide. He was very smart with that. And I think that he also realizes that he's got to just stay in that pocket, drop back and pass, because unlike this past season where Mel Kiper Jr. is like, a cupcake. It's about as much as sugar flowing. Like, come on, Mel. Like, what are we talking about? Like, Trey Lance he faced a great schedule with one game against Central Arkansas. Are you kidding me? Give me a break. But he's not going to face La Tech defensive lines. Even though La Tech's got a pretty good defensive lineman who might get drafted in this draft. Troy, he's not going to face that in the NFL. So that's going to be interesting to see how it goes. But I'm excited to see Zach Wilson have this opportunity. His family, man, you think about the decision from Utah to go with Jack Tuttle and how that is just reaping reward after reward for BYU. The Wilson family is all in on BYU now. Micah Wilson commits. Josh Wilson's going to be a linebacker who might be in the 2 deep this year. What a changing moment for BYU football, because Zach Wilson, as Matt Baiamonte joins, and I will say this, he took over BYU football at its lowest point. Even Twitter agreed with me, Matt.
Wait. Am I on Cougar Sports Saturday right now?
The Twitter poll may have went your favor, but the comments definitely went in my favor.
You're probably right. Hey, Johnny Linehan agreed with me.
Johnny Linehan's just bitter because he was on that terrible team. I'll let him know that in person tomorrow at the local clubhouse here in Vineyard, Utah, too. So
that's amazing. Well, Matt, we're happy to have you on the live reaction show for the NFL draft. It's been, I don't even know what time it is anymore, 7:50 now. So it's been a little over an hour now since Zach was selected number 2 overall by the New York Jets. Wanted to get your reaction to that. We talked earlier this afternoon during our preview show about, kind of his fit for New York, some of the potential downfalls that are, potentially waiting for him in the Big Apple. But what do you think of, just today, this moment for Zach, and how cool is it to finally see it all come together for him?
Incredible moment for him. And let's not forget how incredible this moment is for BYU football too. Because although I don't think 27 was the lowest point in program history, to have the highest player ever taken in program history, Zach Wilson, number 2 overall, that is a significant achievement for Zach and for Kalani and for BYU football. It's going to be something that this program can build upon going forward. It's been 14 years since BYU had a quarterback drafted. I think Taysom Hill is going to win the job in New Orleans, but he went undrafted. So it's been 14 years, and Zach Wilson goes number 2. Just an amazing moment for the Wilsons, for Zach, for BYU. It was expected, but it was still incredibly cool. And then let's also throw in, it's been a long time since a player has walked across the stage. He'll always be remembered as the first guy to congratulate an NFL commissioner after COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, that will go in history books. That's going to be a Jeopardy question. Aaron Rodgers might be asking that question in Jeopardy in 20 or 30 years when he's the permanent host if he gets it. But
20 or 30 years, it might be sooner rather than later after today's news. My goodness. We don't know what he's going to do.
I'm just saying that a question, they're not going to roll that question out in 2 years.
Yeah.
It's going to sit for a while, but just an unbelievable moment for Zach and for BYU.
Get you someone who hugs you like NFL draft players or prospects hug Roger Goodell. Like those hugs, they're always like just must-see TV. It was good to see it because it brings back normalcy, because last year was anything but normal. And, being here in Provo, seeing people, vaccinated and everything, it's good to see that. So that's a great point that, Zach Wilson, first guy since 2019 to walk on the stage. And he was a BYU guy, and I don't think anyone would have seen that coming when Zach Wilson stepped foot at BYU in 2018. I mean, he was a talented guy. Everyone knew that. And I remember seeing him firsthand, in those first couple of spring practices. But still, it's like you don't expect number 2 overall picks, especially coming out of BYU, where there's usually, there's these knocks here, the knocks there. But, man, the Wilson hype machine has just taken off to levels that I don't think any of us could have envisioned. I mean, I remember Matt and I on Cougar Sports Saturday back in January when Zach declared for the draft. I'm thinking, maybe 10, go to the Dallas Cowboys, be part of America's team. That was before Dak Prescott signed his deal. And then to see this rise where he's in a draft where it was like for years, it was Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. Now Justin Fields, he goes to the Bears, and it was Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence. Like, how awesome is that? A kid from Draper, Utah becomes a number 2 pick. in the draft, and it's a great feather in the cap for Kalani Sitake and BYU football, as Matt mentioned.
Yeah, how's the mural coming along back there? Am I seeing a little green on that now? We've seen a little bit more.
Bit of the green on the shoulder there, so it's looking pretty good. It's gonna be cool to see that completed. The local artist, Montesina_art on Instagram. He's handling it all, Jay. Good work here. A few people here checking it out. Locals coming through off Center Street. So pretty fun scene to be here and to witness this, because again, it is history. I mean,
it's basically like you're in
our lifetimes going to see another BYU football draft prospect get a mural. I mean, maybe Matt and I can erect an Isaac Rex one. Maybe we could do that for 2024.
I like that. I don't have the skills as that guy though. It's going to be a haphazard mural, but hey, I'm down for it.
I mean,
yeah, Matt, you put one up in Vineyard.
Like the just what we're seeing here. It's just history. Yeah. Like we're talking about history. Seeing a BYU player go number 2 overall, and it's just pretty remarkable stuff.
Yeah, so you've got Zach Wilson, who goes number 2 overall. You've got, quarterbacks surrounding him. I think it's impressive to think, Trevor Lawrence, everybody thought of him from his freshman year as a number 1 overall pick. That hasn't been a storyline that's new by any stretch. But you've got Zach Wilson, who really solidified himself as the second best quarterback in this draft class. In the pre-draft side of things, we'll see how things shake out over the next few seasons. But Matt, what do you think that says for BYU's future? The fact that they have, some pretty talented quarterbacks in the pool right now, but you've got a guy who, under-recruited guy out of Corner Canyon High School in Draper, ends up coming to BYU after really BYU is an afterthought at best. And then he ends up becoming the second best draft prospect in 2021. What do you think this does for BYU's future, for Kalani Sitake, who's in Cleveland right now, along with Aaron Roderick and Fesi Sitake? I mean, they're having the chance to interact with NFL agents, coaches, GMs. And, I really think that this whole Zach Wilson draft process has really just elevated BYU football as a whole.
Honestly, when I think about that question, because I have given it some thought, I think it provides them an unbelievable opportunity. And what I mean by that is they got to have another good year. Do they need to be 11-1? No. But let's say they go 9-3. Let's say they beat USC at the end of the year. Let's say they snap the streak to Utah. Now we're talking about incredible momentum that's going to burn for years. That's going to change the recruiting game. That could open up possibility for P5 inclusion. I mean, big picture, that's what this means for BYU football, because now they're back on the national scene. And they, as I mentioned, they have to continue to play well. But I think about what Jim McMahon meant to this program back in the 80s. Think about how long the burn was from Jim McMahon and the impact that he had being taken fit to the Bears and everything he did in Chicago. That lasted for a good 15 years, maybe up until the Sarkisian run, where they were getting high quality quarterbacks who were Steve Young, Ty Detmer, guys who were drafted that didn't pan out. John Walsh, Sarkisian, Robbie Boss. I mean, that's the kind of impact Jim McMahon had. And if this program can build upon what they did last year with Zach, I think they can have a similar impact for the next decade. That's the opportunity at hand. And that's why this upcoming season is so big for Kalani to repeat some sort of success that he saw in 2021, because then you can build upon that and you're establishing a culture and a program rather than it just being that 1 year in 2020 where the schedule wasn't very good. Because I hate that. I'm sick of hearing Mel Kiper say that ticks me off, because they never classify it properly. Yeah, the schedule was bad because nobody would play them. No one ever says that anymore, but that's a fact. They were willing to play Alabama. That gets axed. They were willing to play all these big games. That's not Zach's fault. That's not BYU's fault. But now they can validate that year, and it can parlay into better recruiting classes. And who knows, totally. Mitch, maybe even if you put together 2-3 good years, you keep the NFL draft picks going, then the Big 12 comes calling when it's that time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great point just to kind of build on that. And I know that's a cliche term. Anyway.
I'm going to have to set you guys loose real quick, too. I've got some prior engagements here with Sam Farnsworth, who's on a time crunch.
Well,
so
real quick.
One last thought from you, Mitchell.
I think is an opportunity to be, I think, in a best case scenario, a 10-win football team next year. I just think the positivity around Zach Wilson, this BYU football program has been impressive, and I think it's going to carry over. And I think Kalani Sitake, he probably deserved another extension. Zach Wilson even said it back in November, and I think that he is the man for the job. He always said he wants to be the Polynesian Lavelle Edwards. Similar trajectory. It's kind of, the parallels are kind of crazy, and it'll be interesting to see what they do in 2021.
Matt, thanks for your time. Appreciate you joining the live reaction show. Mitch, go catch up with that mural. See if we can get the paint up by the end of the night. I want to see that thing painted before it's dark, okay? All right. We'll catch you guys later.
Yep. There's only one person I'd leave for, and it's you, Sam. So the floor is all yours, brother.
Thanks, Matt.
See you, Matt. Sam Farnsworth of KSL TV. Sam, I know you're on a quick time crunch, but I couldn't wrap up the show without getting to you because I wanted to talk about Zach Wilson and also Penei Sewell, both top 10 picks for the locals in the NFL. First off, let's start off with Zach. Zach goes number 2 overall to the New York Jets. Not a huge surprise. We kind of have all expected it for the last 4 weeks or so now, but what do you make of the pick? How do you think it fits for Zach?
I think it's going to be a good fit for him, joining Coach Sala and their offensive coordinator, LaFleur, as well. I think that's a good fit, right? A lot of people said Zach Wilson would be a nice fit with that 49ers offense. Well, this is basically that offense moving to the East Coast with the Jets. So this is a good fit. What's really going to determine his success now is how can the Jets build a team around Zach Wilson? Will they be able to do that with existing players through free agency, trades in the future, draft this year and in years to come? They've got to start to build something around him that will allow him to succeed. You've got your franchise guy. Now you have to come up with your formula that will allow Zach Wilson to thrive, succeed, and win games in a New York Jets uniform.
So you've got Zach, who's, really just kind of had this meteoric rise. How do you think things shake out between him and these other quarterbacks that are going in the first round? Because I think he's going to be judged in 2 ways. I think he's going to be judged against how Sam Darnold performs in Carolina and how he performs in New York, whether or not that was a good move for the Jets. But I also think he's going to be judged based off of how Trevor Lawrence performs, and not even so much Trevor Lawrence because he was drafted ahead of him, but Trey Lance with the 49ers, Justin Fields with the Bears now. And, I just think that it's kind of unfair because there's so many different variables there. But how do you think things play out with him over the next few seasons?
Well, there's a lot more pressure with being the number 1 pick than the number 2 pick. I'm not saying, number 2 to New York. There's still going to be a lot of pressure there. He's going to be under the microscope there. But it's going to be tough to say. Well, I think there's more pressure on the number 1 pick, Trevor Lawrence, obviously, right? To win, he was taken, and is the part of this pairing of him and Urban Meyer that's supposed to help take Jacksonville to the Super Bowl. Will that happen? I mean, who knows? The history says with quarterbacks taking number 1 that does not happen that often. So there's a lot more pressure there, I think. Zach Wilson's going to a franchise that hasn't won and has not been a legitimate playoff contender for a long time. Even though it's New York, I still think there's a lot less pressure in that situation for him than there is for Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. Now, Justin Fields sliding to number 10, it suddenly becomes kind of like a steal pick for the Chicago Bears, who were able to move up and get him. Whatever he does there is kind of a bonus for the Bears. The Bears have had their quarterback struggles in finding the right guy for the past several years as well. So is Justin Fields the answer? Who knows? We'll have to wait and find out. But I think as far as those 3 quarterbacks, right, I don't want to overlook Trey Lance either in San Francisco, that's just an interesting story overall too, right? Because I see one report that says from Adam Schefter that says that none of the coaching staff knew who the pick was going to be till the pick was announced. And then I see another report from the NBC Sports Network reporter in the Bay Area who says Shanahan knew this was going to be the guy ever since they made the trade to move up to number 3, right? So who knows what the 49ers are doing? They've been so confusing about it the whole time. But, I think Zach Wilson's in a good situation.
I know you're busy. You got to hop on News Radio, KSL News Radio with Unrivaled Scott Mitchell and Alex Keary here in a second. So one last question for you. Yeah. If you want to keep on hearing Sam, everybody, jump off. I won't be offended. Go join KSL News Radio and tune into Sam's comments about the draft there. But I have to ask you about Penei Sewell, former Desert Hills Thunder star, played college football at the University of Oregon, goes number 7 overall to the Detroit Lions. I thought that he was a better fit with the Cincinnati Bengals personally, because I think that, one, Cincinnati just needed an offensive lineman more so than Detroit did. But what do you think of Detroit? He's going to be blocking for not only Jared Goff, but he's also got Jamal Williams who's going to be running behind him now.
Yeah, so I think for Penei Sewell fans, they might be a little nervous about the whole Detroit thing, because Detroit's another one of those franchises that's been a bit of a black hole for the last several years. They just have not been able to put it together to become a competitive team. We've seen a lot of local players go there, and then some have had success, others have not. We think of most recently maybe Kyle Van Noy, who went there, and then when he left, he was able to find life with the Patriots, and his career really took off, right? Hopefully Sewell's career is able to take off right from the get-go in Detroit, but I agree with you. I think Cincinnati would have been a better fit for him. I'll give credit to Mitch Harper, who called it. He said Detroit in our earlier Facebook Live. He thought this would be the landing spot for Sewell. So hopefully it's the spot that he's able to thrive and succeed right from the get-go.
Couldn't agree more. Hopefully both of these guys can find success. They've both kind of landed with some franchises that have had some struggles over the last decade or two now. So wish the best of luck to Penei Sewell and Zach Wilson in their landing spots. But Sam, go ahead, run. I appreciate your time. We'll have to have you on the podcast soon and break down these picks a little further. Thanks again.
Thank you.
That's Sam Farnsworth of KSL TV. You can catch him on SportsBeat as well. But to join me now is Trevor Allen, our Utah Utes insider, who also covers the Pac-12 for KSLSports.com. Trevor, I wanted to have you on to talk about two different things. I wanted to have you on to talk about Penei Sewell, because you've watched him not only from his time at Desert Hills into the Pac-12 with the University of Oregon, but you've also covered the Utah Utes, and I wanted to touch on Urban Meyer and his first draft. But let's start off with Penei Sewell, since we're talking about him right now. Penei goes number 7 overall to the Detroit Lions. I was just telling Sam, I think that Penei should have gone to the Bengals. I think that was a better landing spot for him personally. I think that the Bengals needed more help there, but clearly wanted to have that, connection with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase there. We talked about it earlier in the show. Do you think that was the right move for the Bengals, or do you like where he landed with the Detroit Lions, that is?
I mean, it's really hard to tell, especially when you're just sitting here on draft night. I mean, we can find out after their first year. But if you look at it, Kyle, Joe Burrow hurt his knee, and
right.
He is your franchise guy. You went and spent the number 1 pick after all of that really bad times where you finally got the number 1 pick. You took Joe Burrow, who won the Heisman Trophy, who set college football records that I don't know will ever be broken again. And for him to get injured as a rookie, and he was playing pretty well. And for you to not take a guy to bolster the offensive line that protects your franchise player, to me, it was a little puzzling. But he also needs some weapons. You've also got to have weapons, and why not get a guy who he won a national championship with? I mean, Chase is a really good player. He really is. And, he'll probably, I think it'll be a little bit of a smoother move from college to the pros with having Joe Burrow there. But Sewell is one of those guys. He's an absolute steal at number 7 going to the Lions. I mean, if the Jets, if the Falcons and all of them needed a O-lineman rather than a quarterback or a tight end or whatever, Penei Sewell would have been the first one taken off the board. And while you were on, the other offensive lineman from Northwestern, Slater, got taken to the Chargers, which that would have been, I think, worst case scenario for Sewell. And I know that Herbert was really trying to get Sewell there, but the thing is, they were picking 13th, and so it was really difficult. But all in all, I mean, if I was the general manager of the Cincinnati Bengals, I would have picked Sewell because he's an absolute beast. And he's a guy who can protect your franchise player, where you're putting all your money in there, and a guy who you want to take you to the next level.
A little breaking news coming out right now. It sounds like the New York Jets, Zach Wilson's new team, are trading up in the first round, taking it looks like the Minnesota Vikings have the 14th pick. They're trading that to New York.
Yeah,
Some reports coming out about that. So we'll see if the Jets can add some talent around Zach Wilson. So you've got Trevor Lawrence goes number 1 overall. Not to anyone's surprise, anyone was shocked by that, but I think that this is something that's interesting. I wanted to talk to you about this because this is Urban Meyer's first draft in the NFL. He's only spent his time in college football, but he's had a pretty close seat to watching Trevor Lawrence over the last few years as an analyst for Fox Sports. And so he knows exactly what he's getting in Trevor Lawrence. He knows what kind of player he is, what kind of pros and cons he has to his game. You think that, he's going into a pretty, I would say, lax organization compared to some other franchises. The Jaguars aren't really, one of those teams that expects to win, be in the playoffs year in, year out. I mean, like the Packers a couple years ago missed the playoffs, and everybody's like, "Oh, is Aaron Rodgers washed up? Is he done with?" I think that this is a good landing spot for Urban Meyer with the Jaguars, and I think that this pairing with Trevor Lawrence is a really good one for Urban. What do you think of the pick? Do you like that they went with Trevor Lawrence? Is it just a no-brainer? And how do you see things kind of shaking out between that marriage between Urban Meyer, who really has developed some great quarterbacks throughout his time at Utah and Florida and also at Ohio State?
I mean, Urban has said all along, one of the reasons why he decided to make the jump to the NFL, and particularly the Jaguars, because you normally look at the Jaguars as not as an appealing place to go and coach, especially for a guy with the resume of Urban Meyer of what he's done in college football. And for him to come out of retirement from a great gig of Fox, at Fox Sports as the lead analyst, where he has to work 1 or 2 days and then he gets to go golf with a bunch of famous people. And, like I interviewed him in July, and he just came off of the tennis courts at his house. I mean, it just seems like he's living the good life. And for him to jump back into the grit and grind, and especially going into that next level of coaching in the National Football League, to me, he knew that he needed to find the right place and to get the number 1 pick. And I think they had, what was it, like $75 million in cap or $55 million? I know it was up there.
I mean,
they actually had like
ridiculous amount. Yeah. Yep.
And to where he can kind of do whatever he wants with it. And it's also an organization where they actually hired Urban Meyer first, and then they brought back Trent Baalke as the general manager. And normally it's the other way around. But with Urban Meyer, it's his show. It's his ship. He's the one who has to try and take the Jacksonville Jaguars. And basically Trent Baalke is working with Urban Meyer and not having Urban work for him. And so, and by the way, the Jets pick, it's coming across right now on our on the TV. Sorry about that.
Offensive lineman.
And that's
Tucker.
what they needed. And that's what they needed. They needed that for Zach, because the Jets O-line is garbage.
You gotta protect your number 1 asset, and a guy that you don't have the number 2
the
pick.
Bengals, man.
Yeah, you don't want the number 2 pick every single year or every other year or anything like that. And so, the smartest thing to do is to not only protect Zach Wilson with a good offensive line, but you also need to get some weapons for him. You kind of saw some of the moves that they did in free agency. They went out and got a guy like Corey Davis. They signed a couple other wide receivers as well. And I think that one thing that the Jets...
I know who it is. It's Elijah Vera Tucker. He's really good.
Yeah.
From SC.
Good landing spot for him there.
Yeah,
with,
anyway, carry
the
on.
Jets.
Sorry.
No, I was just saying, I think that, for the Jets' perspective, it's very similar to what Urban Meyer has with the Jaguars, and that's you've got a quarterback now that you've invested your future in. You need to go out and now you need to protect these guys. You've got, I would say, guys that have been classified, and not only Urban, but also Matt LaFleur, Mike LaFleur, like Kyle Shanahan, that kind of offense. Those guys have been all considered as offensive geniuses, like minds as far as, some of the other NFL teams that have had success as far as their offenses are concerned. So you go out and you try and build around those kinds of talents at quarterback that you have, you know, in the top 2 picks. I wanted to talk to you, Trevor, about, you know, what the situation's like as far as Urban Meyer with this draft now. He's the one who's making the decisions, right? I mean, you mentioned that he's not the general manager, but he was hired first. Is this Urban's show? Is it going to be Urban's offense that we see as well? Or are we going to see Darrell Bevel, you know, making some play calls here and there? Do you really believe that, you know, everything from here on out is going to be Urban Meyer?
I think a lot of it is going to be Urban Meyer. He's going to have his hands on a lot of things because he knows that if things fall through the cracks, it's going to come back on him. And he doesn't want to have his reputation, his legacy to be tarnished, because I know that there's a lot of great college football coaches who tried to go to the NFL and it just didn't work out. Urban Meyer doesn't want to be another one of those stats. He wants to be one of those ones that could coach at both levels. And he's already checkmarked college football off, you know, with flying colors. He did a phenomenal job as a college football coach, but he also knew that coming in, this pick for Trevor Lawrence was the biggest choice he's had to make in his career. Because if things don't work out with Trevor Lawrence, if things don't work out with, you know, the picks that Urban has made, and, you know, and it all falls on Urban's staff and his ability to, you know, for who he's hired, it all falls back on him. And then he ultimately loses his job. And so he doesn't want to put his job on. And I know people are like, well, Urban has a lot of money. I get that. And to me, at this phase, it's not about the money. And, you know, so I feel like it's Urban's show. He's going to have his paw prints on everything. Is he going to call plays? No, he will not. Darrell Bevel's going to call plays. Is he going to have an input on what they do? Absolutely, he will. Now, it's just a matter of, can they put it all together so that they can ultimately get the Jacksonville Jaguars back to where they were, you know, a couple years ago when they went to the conference championship game.
Breaking news. My goodness gracious, Trevor. The quarterback carousel ends with Mac Jones.
Oh, jeez.
He's going to the Patriots. They get their guy. Wow. I'm shocked.
Mac was sitting there especially because people were thinking he was going number 3, and now for him to go number 15 to the Patriots, it's kind of surprising. I mean, I knew that the Patriots were going to take a quarterback. I just didn't know if it was going to be Justin Fields, Mac Jones, or basically Trey Lance, because Denver didn't take a quarterback, and we all thought that they would. But between the last time we were on and now, things have changed in Denver, and I'm very excited about it.
We'll see if they continue to play out in your favor, Trevor. I appreciate you joining the live reaction show. We're coming up on 50 minutes here, so I think it's time to wrap it up. We've got another half of the NFL draft that we're going to be covering on KSLSports.com. Be sure to follow the picks live on KSL Sports, our Twitter account. That's at KSL Sports. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook. And we'll have more reaction throughout the weekend about Zach Wilson, Penei, Sewell, all these guys, the local guys going in the NFL. You can tune in tomorrow. You can check out the NFL draft. We're also going to be having some coverage up on the site. We're going to have a few more guys, I think, go tomorrow. At least one guy. I think we're going to have Brady Christensen go tomorrow. And then maybe on day 3, Saturday, we'll have a few other picks go. But you can tune in tomorrow. The NFL draft starts at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. And then on Saturday morning at 10 a.m., we'll have that all covered for you on KSLSports.com.